This video has been a long time coming. This is one of my most requested videos, and it is a farm tour. My husband and I live on his family farm with our 5 children. His great-grandfather purchased this farm. It's 200 acres now. We've added to it over the years. But he purchased this farm in 1940, so we're about 15 years out from being a century farm. So we're not going to walk through the entire farm today, but we are going to take a flyover and I'll show you around, and then I'll show you a few buildings, my favorite buildings. Yeah, and yes, I do have favorite buildings on our farm. So our farm is divided in half by a highway, just a 2-lane highway, but it's pretty busy. Here we're looking over crop and hay fields. I asked my husband before I filmed this video, how many acres of hayfield, how many acres of crop, and how many acres of pasture and woods? Like, what's the split? And he told me, but I've already forgotten. So I do remember he said that we have about 70 acres of pasture. And actually that's what you're looking at here on these hillsides. You can see to your right, there's a little triangle, and then to your left, a big triangle. Both of those hillsides and the woods in between, there's about 40 acres of pasture over here. And in these woods, my husband's grandfather used to run hogs, so I know pastured, I should say forest pork, hogs that are run in the woods. That's all the rage now, but it's really nothing new. That's something that farmers of old did very commonly. You know, they would run their cattle out in the open pasture and then their pigs in the woods. So there are still remnants of old hog buildings and fence in these woods. So right now, on this 40 acres of pasture, we have 5 head of Black Angus cattle. That is a new development. We just purchased those, and you can actually go back and watch the video of the cattle auction where we purchased those and turned them out up here. We are not currently doing rotational grazing. However, that is something that we're very interested in. But we're kind of just getting back into the cattle game because when my husband turned 18, he chose a different path. So now you can see we're up here on the same 40 acres of pasture that I've been talking about, but if you look up in the distance, you can actually see our house and the farm buildings, and you can look over all of the farm and the crop and the hay fields as well. But anyway, he chose a different path. He went into the laborers union, and if you don't know anything about that, it's 30 years and out with the pension. And so he started that very young and put many, many years into that, and we're kind of just now getting back into the cattle game. So right now we're flying over the pond. This is where the cows come to get their water when they are grazing over here on this 40 acres. I'm going to take a quick break to tell you about the sponsor of this video, and then we'll pick up right where we left off. We are designed to get all of the vitamins and minerals we need from our environment, from the food that we eat, from being outside, breathing fresh air, all those things. I'm not telling you guys anything that you don't know, but thanks to soil quality or lack thereof, chemicals that are applied to food that is grown in modern farming practices, stressful lifestyles, and the processing of our food, we're getting a fraction of the vitamins and minerals from our food that our ancestors were just 60, 80, 100 plus years ago. And we do need to be bridging those gaps when we're deficient in vitamins and minerals because it can cause serious health problems. So one of my trusted sources is Mary Ruth's Organics. I have been using Mary Ruth's Organics for years now for kind of like your one-stop shop multivitamins or for something targeted. Mary Ruth's has a really wide selection. They have a new product, their Liquid Nighttime Multi-Mineral and Skin Renew. And what I love about this is that it's covering all of your bases as far as minerals, but it doesn't have melatonin. I personally am just not one to take melatonin. I would rather work on my circadian rhythm by just getting morning light and evening light, trying to avoid blue light in the morning and in the evening, but it's going to cover all of your bases otherwise. It also contains Sepitone fermented bilberry fruit extract, which has been clinically shown to increase skin elasticity, improve firmness and texture, and reduce fine wrinkles, which is why it has the name of Skin Renew. Mary Ruth's Organics products are Clean Label Project certified, so they're third-party tested to make sure that Mary Ruth's claims about having clean ingredients are actually accurate. You can use my code MRO HopewellH to get 20% off your Mary Ruth's order either on Amazon or on their website. It works on both, and it also works for the subscribe and save option. I know this because I am subscribed to a few things from Mary Ruth's through Amazon. That way I don't have to remember to reorder them, and I've used my own code, so I know it works. You just have to enter my code when you get to checkout. I will put my link, my code, and all the details for Mary Ruth's new Liquid Nighttime Multi-Mineral in the description below the video. You know, one thing that I've learned since I married my husband and moved to the farm is that it's really easy to dream and have ideas. Like being the idea person, that's easy. That's fun. But somebody's got to be the realist to say, okay, this is a good idea, but let's think about what this is going to cost and how much work this is going to take. And that's my husband. I'm the idea person. He's the realist. And thank God, because if it weren't for him, I would probably be like broken in jail or something. And if it weren't for me, he would never try anything new. So we kind of balance each other out. So, okay, we're back on the side of the farm where our house is, where all the buildings are, and now we are overlooking some hay fields because this was a hay day, and my father-in-law is cutting, I believe he's cutting alfalfa. You can kind of see, if you look in the center, a square, I believe that's alfalfa field that he's cutting there on the red tractor, and then there is another tractor putting up big bales, big round bales. We do some square bales. We also do round bales. And my father-in-law sells most of the hay. He sells a lot of it to horse people. So lots of regular customers that year after year will come and, okay, this is not alfalfa. No. They will come and purchase hay for their horses. And like I had mentioned, up until just a couple months ago, we didn't have any beef cattle of our own on this farm. My father-in-law had actually been renting all of the pasture to somebody else who ran beef cattle, and we were not in a position to purchase our own beef cattle, so it was a great arrangement. But I am excited that we've got a small little herd of our own beef cattle now. However, for about 5+ years, I have kept 1 or 2 dairy cows, and that's been fun. So typically, our process is just to hold back just enough hay for my little bitty dairy herd over the winter. This is something that I really love, and that is my children being able to learn alongside of their dad and their grandpa these priceless skills and lessons. I had briefly mentioned earlier that my husband and I are interested in regenerative farming and rotational grazing. That is not something we currently do right now, but it's something that I support, and I'm a huge fan. I do see that as the future of farming, which that statement probably ticks off a lot of conventional farmers with a lot of experience to hear this gal who is not a farmer say that. But even though I'm not like a farmer, don't have any farming experience, I'm a really good researcher. That is my background, and I'm really good at science, and so that's kind of where that comes from. I'm good with nature, good with science, and so putting those pieces together is what has me interested in regenerative farming, and someday maybe cutting down on the amount of hay we put up. But we'll still always have our, definitely have to have hay for reserves, just in case. But I'm not going to go into all that. So right now, we're looking over the creek that runs through our farm. This creek is not usually high enough to float or kayak, but we have been getting a lot of rain lately, and my boys were just itching to get their kayak in the creek. So we were able to drop them off at a slab, and then my husband would take our ranger down to the next slab and kind of guide them along the way, and they had an absolute blast. one of my boys successfully completed his trip. I was flying over watching him, and he's took a little bathroom break there. He successfully completed his trip. Here you can see my husband had kind of, like I said, he was just kind of meeting him, guiding him along. But then my other son, when it was his turn, he didn't have as much luck, and he did flip the kayak, get it stuck, and he had to call for help. But, you know, I think it's good for young boys to do things on their own, and sometimes it doesn't go like they hoped.
It is a rainy day. It's going to be raining for the next several days. There's a little break in the rain right now. And even if there weren't, getting rained on isn't the end of the world. We're not going to melt. Kids actually like being outside in the rain. So since it's a rainy day, I know that I need to get outside and walk even more, because I get crabby when I'm not out in natural light. And so if we have several rainy days in a row and I just sit inside, it's even worse. So we're gonna go for a walk. We might get rained on, which the kids will love. I'm walking over to Grandma's house to pick up the rest of the kids before we go for a walk.
One thing that I do most days when it's nice is I walk the road down to let the kids play in the creek. So I'll pick one of the slabs that is, you know, runs through our property, and we'll just stop and just let them play. Let them throw rocks, let them fish. On this day, that was not going to happen, as you can see, because these slabs do flood when we get lots of rain, and there's no way I was going to let my little babies play. So they were kind of upset about that, but we still got our walk in, so I will count that as a success.
Just got back from my walk. Ooh, looking really nice here. Worked up a good little sweat. And I have a voicemail from the post office that my chicks have arrived. It is chick day, so I head to town, pick up some baby chicks. It has been such a long time since I've picked chicks up from the post office, and actually I didn't even pick these guys up from the post office. They're there. I picked them up from my sister's house because yesterday I got a call from the post office, said your chicks are in, and I went to pick them up, but it was raining. And once I got on the road, I got scared. Now I'm admitting something to you guys. I am scared to, I think I've told you guys, I don't like driving. Like, I really don't like driving, but I'm especially scared to drive in the rain. So I turned around and went home, and I called my sister who lives in town and said, would you please pick up my chicks for me? Because I knew she had baby chicks at her house already, so it'd be easy for her to just throw mine under her lamp so I could come get him today. So whew, I was able to make it into town today and get my baby chicks. And you know, the reason I haven't ordered chicks in so long is because my hens, there they are, little babies. So my hens hatch their own chicks every year, and so we always have plenty, but we have not had well summers on the farm or Morans, well summers or Morans, for years now, and those are two of my favorites. I would say well summers are my favorite breed. They lay light brown speckled eggs, like light brown eggs with dark brown speckles, and that is just my favorite egg. It brings me so much joy to see those well summer eggs in my basket. I haven't had them for a long time, so I had to get some of those. And the Morans lay really dark, like chocolate eggs. So this was totally a vanity purchase. Just needed beautiful eggs in my egg basket. But you know, that's what makes it fun. When it comes to like homesteading, I am not just for efficiency. I am for beauty and diversity and just all of the, you know, fun and lighter-hearted aspects, as well as the more practical aspect of producing our food. Got the chicks here in their little brooder box up in the cottage. You know, when we first got baby chicks years back, it was so exciting. It's still exciting, but you know, it was fun having them in our house. Now it's not. The new has worn off over the years, and hearing baby chicks chirp at night is just not very exciting. So it's been nice to have them up here. They've actually been up here for about a week now, and it is crazy how fast they grow. They're getting big enough, and it is summertime, that I will be moving them into one of our little mobile chicken coops into the garden. And they will stay in there for another 4 to 6 weeks until they're big enough to let them go with the rest of the free range flock. Something that I do now when I do buy chicks is I wait until the summer. That way I don't have to worry about them getting cold. I'll keep them in a little brooder box for maybe a week or two with the heat lamp, and then it's summertime, so then they're good to go. So that's one lesson that I've learned. Goodness, I'm trying to think. Lots of chick lessons. I've learned that they're actually pretty easy to keep alive. You don't need a bunch of stuff. You just need to make sure that they have food and water. They do need heat when they're brand new, and that's pretty much it. Another rainy day, but that's okay. There's a break in the rain, so now I'm gonna walk through and I'm not gonna do a full farm tour and show you every building, but I'm gonna show you a few buildings on the farm. So here behind me is one of the shops, and you can see that there are two doors on one side. It's kind of like a workshop, and there's still a lot of the old tools that my husband's grandfather had made and worked with. And then on the other side is just kind of a storage room that used to be used for seed sales. So my father-in-law was a seed salesman, so he farmed full-time. He ran cattle, he had a lot of crop ground that he rented, he sold seed, and he worked full-time off the farm. So he was such a busy guy, very full days. My husband tells stories like when he would get home from his day job, he drove a dump truck, and he would actually get out of the dump truck and run to get to the task that he needed to do to get all of his farm work done in the evening. So that has not been a seed sales room for a very long time. It is just a storage room now. Even though, we are not what I would consider farmers at the moment, it is such a blessing to have all of these buildings, these old buildings that are in amazing shape, and they could be used for a multitude of purposes. And I don't know what the future holds for John and I as far as this farm, but I love that the possibility is there for one or a few of our kids, if they have an interest in farming, to really make this place sustainable again, like it would have been before the modern age. And speaking of sustainability, the next building I'm going to show you behind me is the old granary. This building has been out of use for probably decades, once again. But, when you live on a farm, ruminants, cattle, goats, sheep, they can be grazed on grass. And, if you do it right, then that's really all they need. You actually don't need to supplement them with grain or anything. But that's not true for monogastric animals with just one stomach. So your pigs, your chickens, they can't survive just on grass alone. It's definitely good for them to be, able to range, whether that is in the woods or on pasture, whatever, and eat bugs and roots and dig and all that sort of thing. But you do need to feed them as well. And so in the days of old, on farms, it would have been one of the buildings that would have been necessary to have is a granary, so that it's a grain house, a place to store the grains that you grow and harvest, and then you would mix your own grain. So, that makes a lot of sense to be able to grow the food that you need on your own property to feed the animals that you are raising on that property. And we're going to take a look inside of this granary. It's pretty neat. We still have the old grinder mixer sitting in there, and that is a piece of machinery that I don't believe you can purchase grinder mixers anymore, at least not new. But we've got one. And, my husband said it wouldn't take anything at all to get this granary back in use. There's just one minor hurdle, and that is that we don't grow our own grain. We don't have the equipment to harvest our own grain. So just a minor little couple $100,000 hurdle.
All right, it is dark in here. So, it's not the easiest to see, but you can see here different stalls. These are actually grain storage bins, I guess you could say. Grain storage compartments, I don't know the right word to use. But little grain rooms for different grains. So, I don't know if you grow oats or barley or corn or beans or whatever, you would store different things in each different space. And you see here, actually, let me get down and show you guys this. So this one here still has the paneling in it, so that when you filled this area with, let's just say that you put corn in here. Okay, it's very dark, but let's say that you're filling this up. Is it called a crib? Is it called a corn crib? I'm not too proud to say that I don't know all my farm terminology. But let's say that you're filling this up with corn. You would actually put the panels in, the more full that it got, you'd slide the panels down to keep the corn from falling out. And then when you want to go and get your different amounts of grain from each area, then it's gonna come out right here. And then we've got the old grinder mixer behind me, and that would, it pretty much says it in the name. That's what you put your grain in to grind and mix it for your animals. So, we've got the setup, got the buildings, but we don't have everything we need. Like, let's say that we wanted to start running pigs in our woods again, like John's grandpa and great grandpa used to do. And, let's say that we wanted to do mobile chicken coops that we rotated around with cattle as we were rotational grazing. Say we wanted to do that, and we wanted to grow and mix and grind our own feed for those monogastric animals. We're missing some key pieces of equipment. That stuff can be done by hand, Think about it. For thousands of years, people have been farming on large scale too. Large scale. It just took a lot of manpower. And the question that I think of is that good or bad that it took a lot of manpower? Machines replacing manpower, is that a good or a bad thing? Well, it's never a black and white answer, I don't think. It's never just 100% cut and dried. I think there's maybe good and bad. But I definitely think that we would be better off as a people if we were more connected to the land, and if we had more cause to get us out working with our hands. So, I don't have all the answers. It's to me, it's not like becoming Amish and just writing off all technology. It's maybe just being, just more conscious on how we implement our use of technology. Like, I have no problem with having tractors and having all this old equipment. I think it's awesome, and I would love to put it to use. But even doing it that way, it requires more manpower than if we would just go down to the feed store and get our feed. So that's for everybody to decide for themselves, as far as if you're interested in farming, what you want that to look like. All the way from the Amish old ways up to conventional modern farming. And for me, not a farmer, zero farming experience, but I'm very interested in it and I would love to do it. It's somewhere in the middle there, using some machinery, but still just being heavily involved as a family, really having to put our hand and our children's hands to work to feed ourselves from our land. That is it for the granary tour. I had actually asked my husband if he would come out here and he would do the tour, because he knows all the terminology. He would not sound ridiculous like I do when I'm trying to say what things are on a farm, but he doesn't like being on the camera. He doesn't like talking to the camera, so he said no, absolutely not. He said you can do it yourself. So hope you guys don't mind my attempt. All right, we have several sheds and shops for equipment, a few hay sheds, but I think the last thing that I'm going to show you guys on this video are the farrowing houses. So John's grandpa, great grandpa, raised a lot of pigs. They farrowed their own pigs, and they ran them in several different places on the farm. So they would farrow them. They had the farrowing houses down here, which you can see right behind me. It's these two, there are two of them, long, kind of long, skinny buildings. There's this enclosed one right here, and then one behind it. The backside is painted red. They're sitting empty, and they have been, once again, for decades. There are no pigs. We have a few feeder pigs right now, like 6 of them that the kids are raising to show in the fair for 4-H, but we do not raise pigs. And you know, there are farms like ours all across the country that still have all of these buildings from days gone by, days of old, when farms mostly sustained themselves. You know, sure, they would rely on their community for this, that, or the other, for seed sales or for just whatever, you know. It's not like they were living on an island. But, you know, all in all, that was kind of the American dream. That was the goal of, you know, the Homestead Act, is get yourself a piece of land, 100 to 200 acres or so, that you can make a living on. That's what you do, you and your family. You know, you run your cattle and your pigs, your chickens, you got a dairy cow or two, and, you know, you raise your crops, mix your grain, your feed for your animals that need it, graze your animals that you can graze, grow yourself a garden, and you have what you need. Anyway, there are so many of these old farms and homesteads that are going to be switching hands in the next 20, 40 years, in the next couple of generations. We're going to see the largest land transfer in the history of this country, because family farms are dying. Farms are not being worked like they used to. And kids don't want to take them over, because there really isn't that sentimentality, those memories of working the family farm, or providing for yourself off the land. That's just not how things are run anymore. And so I really see such a huge opportunity, and I have such a soft spot for first generation farmers. You know, it really bothers me when I see this happen constantly. As someone, I think I maybe have a unique perspective. Like, I'm married to a generational farmer, but I'm not a farmer. No farming experience. So these first generation farmers, they're interested, they're eager, they're willing to work, willing to learn. And yeah, they're green, they don't know it all. But they are made fun of, laughed at, mocked, told they're stupid, told they can't do it, told they're doing it wrong, for just asking questions. You know, they don't know. They've never done it, but they're asking questions like, hey, you know, I kind of see this conventional model that all farmers use these days, but what did people do before that? You know, what if they wanted to just try to make a living off their farm so that they didn't have to do a day job as well? Is that possible, to provide for a family off of 50, 100, 150, 200 acres, something smaller scale like that? And, you know, they're laughed at for just asking those questions. And I don't like that because what I know is it actually is possible. It is possible. You just, it's not possible within the conventional model. And I think that's where it gets tricky, because people obviously get very emotionally attached to their own personal way of doing things, when in reality there's usually, with most things in life, a few valid ways of doing things. So, you know, I don't know exactly where I'm going with this tangent. Just know that if you are somebody who's interested in farming, or you are a first generation farmer, I don't know, maybe save up your money. Because like I said, these farms, they're out there, and the skills are not being taught to the children. The buildings are lying empty. The land is unused or barely used. And before too long, and another thing is, people aren't having children anymore. Maybe they're having 1 or 2. So before too long, these farms are going to be up for grabs. So somebody who maybe had some money tucked away would be in a really good position in 5, 10, 15 years or so. So
this is the little mobile chicken coop that I was telling you guys about. By the way, those are not weeds. Those are potatoes I planted under my bean tunnel because I knew that the potatoes would mature before the beans shaded everything out. So the beans are just now popping up, but the potatoes will be ready to harvest before everything gets super shady. So that was a good way to, you know, I was able to grow quite a few potatoes here in this space that otherwise would have just laid empty. So I like kind of looking for creative ways to use my garden space. It's not just unused space. But anyway, so this coop, I'm gonna put the little bitty chicks in maybe in about a week or so, and then every day we'll just kind of pick it up and move it throughout this area, which these are grapevines, and in this row here, and then the next row over, we've got some blackberries. So we're just gonna let the little chicks kind of do their work, scratching and pecking at the ground and fertilizing everything. And we are going to start making our own compost this year. This will be the first year that we do that, and that process is going to start here soon because I know my husband is wanting to clean out the deep bedding from the cattle stalls where we had our cattle, some of our cattle over the winter. So I'll show you guys that process of making compost. Compost is not just aged manure. That was something that was a little bit difficult for us to work through because compost is not something that my husband was familiar with, and I was trying to explain it, and he's like, okay, compost, you mean just like the cow poop that's been out there? I'm like, no, it's like a whole thing. You got to pile it up and then add you know, straw or old hay or whatever, and he's like, so you mean it's just like manure that's just been sitting there? And I'm like, well, kind of, but anyway, good old YouTube solved it for us. I was like, let's just watch a video on making like legit compost that has broken down and killed all the weed seed that might be present, and you can now apply to your garden. We watched YouTube videos. YouTube saved the day. Now we got a plan. We're gonna make a big, huge compost pile, not something that I'll just be going out and like turning with a little pitchfork, but something we'll be setting the chickens loose in and using maybe my husband's skid steer to turn. So until then, I think that's all I've got for you guys. Thanks for watching again this week. See you next week.